What happens when you ask your family for one simple favor after years of sacrifice, and their response destroys everything you thought you knew about love? The notification sound pierced through my apartment's evening stillness like a blade. I glanced at my phone, expecting maybe a work email or a friend sharing some mindless meme. Instead, it was the family group chat, the Martinez crew. A name that had felt warm once, back when we actually felt like a crew. Surgery scheduled for March 12th. Just need someone to drive me home afterward. Should only take about an hour at the hospital. I hit send and set the phone aside, feeling that familiar flutter of vulnerability that came with asking for help. Even something this small felt monumental. After 17 years of being the family's unofficial safety net, asking for anything always made my chest tight. The response came faster than I expected. Presley. LMAO, you actually thought we'd miss Cabo for that? Beach with umbrella, face with tears of joy. My sister. My younger sister who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who I taught to braid friendship bracelets and helped through her first heartbreak. The sister I'd given half my inheritance to when she was going through a rough patch that somehow lasted 3 years. I stared at those words, LMAO, and felt something fundamental shift inside my chest, like a foundation beam finally snapping after years of invisible stress fractures. Then came Mom's response, "Don't guilt us, Jimena. This trip has been planned for months. You know how important it is for Presley's career. As if posting bikini photos with sponsored sunglasses was the same as performing brain surgery. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long moment. I wanted to type so many things. I wanted to remind them about the time I drove 8 hours to bail Presley out of jail after her DUI. About the mortgage payments I'd covered when Mom temporarily couldn't make ends meet. About Dad's funeral, where I'd handled every detail while they fell apart, then handed over my share of his life insurance because family takes care of family. Instead, I typed 2 words, my mistake. And somehow, those 2 words contained every disappointment, every unspoken resentment, every moment I'd swallowed my own needs to make room for theirs. The weight of always being the strong one. Growing up, I was the practical daughter. Presley was the creative one, dramatic, charismatic, the kind of person who could walk into any room and make it orbit around her energy. I was the one who remembered to pack lunches, who did homework without being asked, who never threw tantrums because even at 8 years old, I sensed that our family's emotional resources were already stretched thin. Jimena's so mature for her age, adults would say, and I'd glow with pride, not realizing they were describing the death of my childhood. When Dad got sick, I was 21 and Presley was 19. While she processed her grief by dropping out of college and backpacking through Europe to find herself, I took night classes and worked double shifts to help with his medical bills. When he died, the life insurance policy was split between us, $47,000 each. I kept mine for exactly 6 weeks. I can't keep the house, Mom had sobbed into my shoulder. The mortgage is $2,800 a month. I can't do it alone. So I signed over my check. $30,000, my entire financial safety net, gone in one signature. Presley was in Barcelona at the time, posting Instagram stories about healing her soul with tapas and sangria. When I finally reached her to tell her dad's money had saved Mom's house, she just said, "Oh good, I was worried about that. Anyway, I'm thinking of extending my trip." That was the pattern. I gave, they took. I sacrificed, they celebrated. I held the family together with my bare hands while they lived their lives. And somehow this became so normal that asking for a single ride home from surgery was treated like an unreasonable imposition. The surgery no one cared about. The laparoscopy wasn't life-threatening, but surgery is still surgery. 3 small incisions in my abdomen to remove a benign mass that had been causing months of pain. The gynecologist, Dr. Chun, had been gentle but direct. "You'll need someone to drive you home and stay with you for at least 6 hours. The anesthesia can cause confusion and nausea." I'd nodded, assuming that for once, just this once, my family would show up. The night before the procedure, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my phone silent beside me. No good luck tomorrow text. No thinking of you message. Nothing. Meanwhile, Presley's Instagram story was a carousel of her packing designer swimsuits for Cabo, each photo captioned with increasingly breathless excitement. 36 hours until paradise. Can't wait to disconnect and recharge. Living my best life. I wanted to text her. Just something simple like, "Hey, nervous about tomorrow." But I knew what would happen. She'd either ignore it entirely or send back something like, "You'll be fine." Surgery is so routine these days, before immediately returning to her vacation preparations. So I didn't text. I just lay there, feeling smaller and more alone than I had since Dad died. Surgery day. When strangers show more care than blood. The surgical center smelled like antiseptic, and those weird lavender air fresheners they used to mask medical anxiety. I checked in alone, filled out forms alone, sat in the waiting room alone scrolling through my phone to distract myself from the sounds of other patients being called back for their procedures. Jimena Martinez? The nurse who called my name had kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her scrubs were covered in tiny colorful butterflies. That's me. I'm Nurse Patricia. I'll be with you through the whole process, okay, honey? The endearment hit me unexpectedly hard. When was the last time someone had called me honey? When had anyone used that tone of voice with me? Protective, maternal, genuinely caring. In the pre-op room, Patricia helped me change into the hospital gown and started my 4 with practiced efficiency. "So who's picking you up today?" "Uber," I said, trying to keep my voice light. She paused, the blood pressure cuff half inflated around my arm. "Uber? Honey, you can't take Uber after anesthesia. It's against policy. Don't you have family?" The question hung in the sterile air between us. I could have lied. Could have said they were running late or parking the car. Instead, I heard myself say, they had other plans. Patricia's expression shifted into something I recognized. The look people get when they suddenly understand that your normal isn't actually normal at all. "Well," she said softly, "we'll figure something out, okay? Let me talk to discharge planning." As the anesthesia started to take hold, the last thing I remembered was Patricia squeezing my hand and saying, "You're going to be just fine, sweetheart. We've got you." When I woke up, groggy and nauseous, Patricia was there with ginger ale and saltines. "How are we feeling?" "Dizzy," I mumbled, my mouth cotton dry. "That's normal. The good news is everything went perfectly. Dr. Chen said the mass came right out, no complications." She helped me sit up slowly. "Now about getting you home." I fumbled for my phone to order the Uber, but Patricia gently pushed my hand away. The discharge coordinator found a solution. "We have a volunteer driver program for patients without support systems. Margaret's going to take you home and stay with you for a few hours." Margaret turned out to be a retired teacher in her 70s who had been volunteering at the medical center for 12 years. She drove a spotless Honda Civic and talked to me in the same soothing voice she'd probably used with thousands of anxious students. "Surgery's scary no matter how routine," she said as we pulled into my apartment complex. "Don't you worry about feeling emotional. It's completely normal." I wasn't crying because of the surgery. I was crying because a stranger had shown me more care in 4 hours than my own family had in years. The phone call that changed everything. 3 days later, I was finally feeling human again. The incisions were healing well, the pain manageable with over-the-counter medication. I'd been existing in a strange bubble of peace. Just me and my quiet apartment, and no one asking me for anything. Then my phone rang at 2:47 p.m. "Ms. Martinez? This is Jennifer from North Valley Medical Center. Your mother called this morning asking about your condition. Per your HIPAA consent form, I confirmed that your procedure went well, and that you were discharged home via our volunteer driver program." My stomach dropped. She called the hospital? "Yes, ma'am." She seemed surprised when I mentioned the volunteer driver. Said she thought someone else was handling your transportation. Jennifer's voice was professionally neutral, but I caught the undertone of confusion. "Just wanted to let you know we don't typically get family calling for updates when the patient is recovering normally." After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen staring at my phone. Mom had called the hospital. After 3 days of radio silence, after dismissing my surgery as an inconvenience to her vacation plans, she had called to check on me. But not to check on me really. To check on her own conscience. 20 minutes later, my phone exploded. Mom. Jimena, why didn't you tell us you were going completely alone? I just talked to the hospital. This is unacceptable. Mom. I assumed you had arranged something with friends. You should have said something if you were going to be by yourself. Presley. Wait, hold up. You actually went through with surgery alone? Mom just called me freaking out. Presley. I feel kind of bad now. Like not bad, but you should have made it clearer you were desperate. Desperate. The word sat in my chest like a stone. I didn't respond to either of them. Instead, I went to my laptop and began typing an email I'd been writing in my head for 3 days. The email that burned bridges. To partnerships@tropicalvibes.co. Subject. Concerning recent brand ambassador behavior. Hello. I'm writing to inform you about the conduct of one of your brand ambassadors, Presley Martinez, at Presley Paradise. On March 9th, Ms. Martinez was informed that her sister required surgery on March 12th and needed transportation home from the hospital. Her response was to laugh, LMAO, and mock the request, stating that she wouldn't miss your sponsored trip to Cabo for that. While I understand that business commitments are important, I felt your company should be aware that your brand is being represented by someone who publicly ridicules family medical emergencies. I've attached screenshots of the conversation. As a consumer who values companies that align with authentic wellness and family values, I wanted to give you the opportunity to review whether Ms. Martinez's conduct represents the image you want associated with your brand. Sincerely, X Martinez. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Presley's contact photo, a selfie of her blowing a kiss in designer sunglasses, filled the screen. What the actual fuck, Jimena? Hello to you too. Did you seriously email my sponsors? Are you out of your goddamn mind? Her voice was shaking with rage. They dropped me. The entire campaign. Do you have any idea what you just cost me? Approximately what you cost me when you decided mocking my surgery was appropriate content for the family group chat. It was a joke. You know I joke when I'm uncomfortable. I didn't actually mean. You meant it exactly the way you said it, Presley. You've always meant it. The only difference is this time there were consequences. Silence. Then, this is insane. You're being psychotic. I was on vacation. It was work. And I was having surgery. Alone. Because my family thought posting Instagram stories was more important than basic human decency. Oh my God, you're so dramatic. It was outpatient surgery. You're fine. That word, fine, broke something in me that I hadn't realized was still whole. I'm hanging up now, I said quietly. Don't you dare. I ended the call and immediately blocked her number. When Mom showed up, 2 days later, someone knocked on my door at 7 a.m. Through the peephole, I saw Mom standing in the hallway, clutching her purse like a shield. She looked smaller somehow, older. Her hair was unwashed and her clothes wrinkled, like she'd been wearing them for days. I almost didn't open it. Jimena, please. We need to talk. I unlocked the deadbolt but left the chain engaged, opening the door just enough to see her face clearly. About what? About everything. About what happened. I got on the first flight I could book. Her voice cracked. I didn't know you were alone. I swear I didn't know. You knew exactly what you needed to know. I asked for help. You said no. The details don't change that. But I thought. You thought I was being dramatic. You thought I was trying to manipulate you. You thought my medical procedure was less important than Presley's vacation photos. I paused. You thought I'd just handle it myself, like I always do. The truth of that last statement hit her face like a physical blow. She took a step back, her hand flying to her throat. That's not. I would never. You would. You did. You've been doing it for years, Mom. I'm the daughter you don't have to worry about because I never make you worry. I never complain, never ask for anything, never cause problems. So when I finally do need something, you can't even process it as real. She was crying now, tears streaming down her cheeks. Let me in. Please. Let me explain. I looked at this woman who had given birth to me, who had taught me to tie my shoes and helped me with homework, who had also spent the last 15 years treating me like a free therapy session and ATM. I felt something I'd never felt before when looking at her. Complete emotional detachment. There's nothing to explain, I said softly. And nothing to fix. I closed the door. The reckoning. Over the next 2 weeks, they both tried everything. Love-bombing texts about how much they missed me. Angry messages about how I was tearing the family apart. Guilt trips about Dad and how disappointed he'd be to see us fighting. Mom showed up twice more. The first time I didn't answer. The second time, I opened the door fully and let her see my apartment. Really see it, for the first time in months. It's so quiet in here, she said, looking around like she was seeing a museum exhibit instead of her daughter's home. That's what peace sounds like. She winced. Jimena, I know I made mistakes, but this is extreme. We're family. Families forgive each other. Families also show up for each other. But we've never actually been that kind of family, have we? That's not true. When Dad was dying, who handled the funeral arrangements? You did, but you were always better at those kinds of things. When Presley got her DUI, who drove 8 hours to bail her out? You, but I had to work. When you couldn't make your mortgage payments, who gave you $30,000 without asking any questions? She was quiet now, her hands twisted in her lap. When Presley's car broke down, when she needed a cosigner for her apartment, when she borrowed money that never got paid back. Who handled all of that? You, she whispered. And when I needed one ride home from surgery, what did you do? The silence stretched between us like a canyon. You're right, she said finally. You're absolutely right, and I don't know how to fix it. You can't fix it, Mom. You can't unspend 15 years of taking advantage of someone's love. You can't undo choosing Presley's comfort over my basic needs every single time it came down to a choice. But I love you. You love what I do for you. You love that I'm reliable and uncomplicated, and always there when you need me. But you don't actually know who I am, do you? You don't know my favorite color, or what keeps me up at night, or what I dream about when I let myself dream. She stared at me, and I could see her trying to remember, trying to access some stored information about my inner life that simply wasn't there. I thought you were happy being the strong one. I was never strong, Mom. I was just afraid that if I wasn't useful, I'd be unloved. And I was right, wasn't I? The moment I needed something instead of providing something, I became disposable. She broke down then, sobbing in a way I'd never seen before. But it was too late for tears to bridge the gap that had been growing between us for years. I need you to leave, I said gently. And I need you not to come back. Jimena, I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. The aftermath. In the months that followed, I learned what it felt like to live without the constant low-level anxiety of waiting for the next crisis I'd be expected to solve. My phone stopped buzzing with emergency requests and guilt-laden manipulations. My bank account stopped hemorrhaging money to fund other people's poor decisions. I also learned what it felt like to be completely rewritten in someone else's narrative. Through mutual friends, I heard the stories they were telling. I'd had a breakdown after surgery. I was going through something, and pushing away people who loved me. Presley had even started a blog series called When Mental Health Affects Family Dynamics, positioning herself as the concerned sister trying to help her struggling sibling. Let them talk. Let them make me the villain in their story. I was finally the hero in my own. I redecorated my apartment, buying furniture that no one else had ever crashed on or cried over. I started therapy, where I learned words like emotional parentification, and codependency and trauma bonding. I discovered that what I'd called love was often just fear wearing a disguise. 3 months after the surgery, I got an unexpected message on LinkedIn. Hi Jimena, I know this is random, but I'm Marcus, Presley's ex from college. I saw what happened with your family situation through some mutual friends, and I just wanted to say I'm proud of you. Living with Presley for 2 years showed me exactly how she treats the people who care about her. You standing up for yourself was long overdue. Hope you're doing well. I cried reading that message. Not from sadness, but from relief. Someone had witnessed it. Someone understood that I hadn't been crazy or cruel or dramatic. I had simply been human. 6 months later, The life I never knew I wanted. I'm writing this from my kitchen table on a Saturday morning, sunlight streaming through windows that no longer feel like they're waiting for unwelcome visitors. My coffee is still hot, because no one called to interrupt my morning routine with a crisis that somehow became my responsibility. The apartment is quiet, but it's not the hollow quiet of loneliness. It's the full quiet of contentment. My bookshelves hold books I actually want to read instead of self-help guides about managing difficult family members. My refrigerator is covered with photos of friends who know me as something other than a solution to their problems. I've been dating someone, carefully, slowly, learning to recognize the difference between someone who appreciates my kindness and someone who wants to exploit it. His name is David, and when I told him about my surgery, he was horrified that I'd gone alone. Not performatively horrified, not fishing for details horrified. Just genuinely shocked that people could treat someone they claim to love with such casual cruelty. That's not normal, he said simply. You know that's not normal, right? I'm still learning to trust that assessment. Last week, I ran into one of Mom's friends at the grocery store. She got that awkward, pitying look people get when they think they know your business. Jimena, how are you, honey? Your mother's been so worried. I'm doing really well, actually. Better than I've been in years. She blinked, clearly expecting me to elaborate on the family drama she'd undoubtedly heard about. When I just smiled and continued shopping, she called after me. Well, family is family, you know. At some point, you'll want to make peace. I turned back to her with the kind of smile I'd learned in therapy, polite but impenetrable. I already have peace. That's exactly the point. The message I never sent but should have. There's a draft in my phone that I've written and rewritten dozens of times. It's addressed to both Mom and Presley, though I'll never send it. I hope someday you understand that loving someone doesn't mean accepting their abuse. I hope you learn the difference between forgiveness and enabling, between loyalty and self-destruction, between family and fantasy. I spent 17 years being the person you needed me to be instead of the person I actually was. I bent myself into shapes that fit your comfort, your convenience, your conscience. I made myself smaller so you could feel bigger, made myself needier, so you could feel generous when you occasionally threw me scraps of basic human decency. When I asked for one ride home from surgery, you didn't just say no. You laughed. You made my pain into entertainment, my vulnerability into inconvenience. And in doing so, you showed me exactly how little I had ever mattered to you. But here's what you probably don't realize. Losing your conditional love was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it forced me to find my own. I don't miss you. I miss the family I thought we were, but we never actually were that family. We were just three people trapped in roles that slowly suffocated all of us. You as the takers, me as the giver, none of us honest about what we were really doing to each other. I hope your lives are everything you wanted them to be. I hope Cabo was perfect. I hope every sponsored post and every guilt-free vacation and every crisis you'll now have to handle alone feels exactly the way you thought it would. As for me, I'm finally living a life that's actually mine. And it turns out, I'm much more interesting than any of us ever imagined. I'll never send that message. But writing it helped me understand something crucial. I don't need them to acknowledge what they did to me. I don't need their apology or their understanding, or their permission to be happy without them. I just need to keep being free. The ride I never got, the life I finally found. The scar from my surgery is barely visible now, just a thin line that catches the light sometimes when I'm getting dressed. It's funny how the evidence of trauma can fade so completely while the strength you gained from surviving it becomes permanent. I never got that ride home from the hospital. But I got something infinitely more valuable. I got myself back. If you're reading this and recognizing pieces of your own story, the endless giving, the casual taking, the moment when you realize that unconditional love only went one direction, I want you to know something. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotions. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You are not obligated to accept scraps and call them love. And most importantly, choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. The people who truly love you will celebrate your boundaries, not punish you for having them. They'll show up when you need them, not just when they need you. They'll see your worth as inherent, not conditional on your usefulness. I found those people. They were there all along, friends, colleagues, even strangers like Nurse Patricia and Margaret the volunteer driver. I just couldn't see them clearly while I was drowning in the chaos of people who confused taking with loving. My family taught me that love was sacrifice. What they didn't teach me, what I had to learn on my own, is that love without respect isn't love at all. It's just need wearing a disguise. I'm writing this 6 months after I sent that 2-word text. My mistake. It wasn't a mistake to ask for help. It wasn't a mistake to need them. The only mistake I made was waiting so long to realize that their inability to love me properly was not a reflection of my worth. I'm 32 years old, and I'm just now learning who I am when I'm not busy being who everyone else needs me to be. Turns out, I'm someone worth knowing. Someone worth protecting. Someone worthy of showing up for. The ride I needed never came. But I made it home anyway. To a home I built myself, filled with people who see me as more than just a solution to their problems, where asking for help is met with love instead of laughter. And for the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I belong.